The anime begins with Ayumu living his life normally, but on his way home, he saves a kitten that is about to be run over, but he is hit hard by the truck that sends him flying. Fortunately, he is a zombie, so nothing happens to him. He barely gets home and Yu asks him to make dinner because she's hungry, and although he's a little sore, he does it without question because Yu is Eucliwood Hellscythe, a necromancer from the underworld who resurrected him when he was murdered by a serial killer, and now Ayumu seeks revenge. After dinner, Ayumu receives a call from his friend Orito, who tells him that there was another murder in the neighborhood. Then, Ayumu goes out to relax and have a soda in the cemetery since he feels at peace when he is there because he is a zombie. Suddenly, his peace is interrupted by a girl using a chainsaw. He first thinks she is a cosplayer girl, then he thinks she is the serial killer. But the girl yells at him to get out of her way, but it's too late. The beast against whom she was fighting impales Ayumu with one blow. The girl thinks that Ayumu is dead, so she doesn't mind cutting the beast and Ayumu in half. But when the battle ends, she is surprised to hear Ayumu alive. He says that he is a zombie and she introduces herself. She is Haruna, a magic-clad girl. She tries to erase his memory, but instead her magical clothes disappear, and she says that he stole her magic and starts beating him, and all of this is observed by someone secretly. After that, they both go to Ayumu's house, since she will stay there until he returns her magic. Then, Haruna calls her instructor Ariel and tells her everything that happened to her. Meanwhile, outside his house there is a man reporting that there is a magic-clad girl nearby. The next day, Orito asks Ayumu why he leaves school so late these days, and the reason is that zombies can't walk in the sunlight, so he waits until the sun sets to go home. Orito thinks that he must be lonely living on his own, so he offers to play video games with him, but Ayumu fervently denies, since even in the normal life of mortals, it is very rare to live with two girls alone. After Orito leaves, the same suspicious man from before enters Ayumu's classroom and says that he wants him. Ayumu immediately misunderstands him and covers his rear, worried about his chastity. But suddenly, Haruna enters through the window and says that this guy is a megalo, a very powerful beast like the one from last night. That monster came because he felt the aura of a magic-clad girl, but he is confused because that aura comes from Ayumu. Then Haruna tries to transform but fails, and since the beast is no longer interested in Haruna, he's about to eliminate her, but she is protected by Ayumu, who uses 100% of his human strength to attack him, but it's not enough. So Haruna tells Ayumu that he must become magic-clad girl and teaches him how to do it. The problem is that now he also wears Haruno's pink dress, but he can also use her magic chainsaw and manages to defeat the monster. Unfortunately, the fight was so fierce that he ended up outside the school dressed as a cosplayer girl, and all the students who were still there start taking photos of him, calling him a perv. At that moment, Haruna appears and tells him that she appoints him as a magic-clad girl. Now Ayumu is a zombie and a magic-clad girl. Fortunately for him, with his magic-clad girl powers, he was able to erase the memories of everyone who saw him. At lunchtime, he is surprised to try the exquisite lunch that Haruna packed for him, and his classmates also try it, so they take it from him and give him their bread in exchange. When he gets home, he thanks Haruna for the food and asks her to add rice next time, but she asks him to cook dinner since she only knows how to cook eggs. While Yu and Haruna are feasting on the dinner that Ayumu prepared for them, a girl named Seraphim appears. She is a ninja vampire, and she came to ask Yu to leave with her to a war in the ninja village, but Yu refuses and she tells Ayumu to get rid of Seraphim, but the vampire offers herself as her servant, although Yu says that position belongs to Ayumu. Then Seraphim challenges Ayumu to a duel to show him who deserves that position, and he accepts because Yu asked him to send the vampire away. The fight begins in the cemetery, and Seraphim, being a ninja vampire, is very good with the sword, so she manages to hurt him, and when she cuts his arm, he lets her stab him with her sword and takes advantage of the fact that she is close to him to increase his power at 200% and give her a headbutt. And when she flies away from him, he uses his severed arm as his weapon and defeats her. Seraphim admits defeat and disappears. When he returns home, Seraphim is at his house again and tells him that she will still try to fulfill her mission of taking Yu, but since she lost the duel, she will be her servant, although she's only in name because she refuses to follow his orders. At night, Serpent asks Ayumu what happened to Yu since her heart seems closed, but Ayumu has no answer, and when he is alone, he remembers the night he met her. A month ago, she was sitting outside a convenience store staring into space, but he thought she was a cute girl and started doing funny things to make her smile until he got it, and she started talking to him by writing notes. After that, on the way home, he heard a woman screams and entered a house to help her but was attacked by the serial killer. When Ayumu woke up, Yu was next to him and told him that she prevented his death because she is a necromancer. And from that moment on, they began to live together. The days passed and Haruna began to live with them, and finally Seraphim also joined his strange group. One day, while Ayumu is serving them lunch, Haruna and Surbayam start bothering him, and Haruna tells him to die. Yu gets upset and tells her not to say those things, but Haruna ignores her and keeps telling Ayumu to die. Suddenly, Yu slaps Haruna in the face and writes that death is painful. Haruna knows A went too far, so A gives Yu a delicious egg dish and leaves. At that moment, it starts to rain, and Ayumu thinks it's Yu's heart crying. The next day, it dawns sunny, so Ayumu has to go to school with an umbrella because he is a zombie and can't stand the sun. Meanwhile, the three girls stay at home playing board games, but they soon finish playing and think about what else to do. At school, Orito tries to ask different girls out, but they all reject him. So he asks Ayumu to go bowling with him and makes up an excuse that going out with girls is boring, so Ayumu quickly accepts so he can stop talking, since the girls were listening to him. When they leave school, they go bowling, but to Ayumu's bad luck, the three girls are also there. He tries to hide, but he fails, and the three girls come up to greet him. Orito can't believe that his friend knows three beautiful girls, and it gets worse when Haruna tells him that they live with him. Orito starts imagining all kinds of scandalous scenes about Ayumu and the girls, but Ayumu tells him that none of that happens. Then Orito challenges Ayumu to a round of bowling to let him live with them, but unfortunately for Orito, Ayumu is good at bowling and easily beats him. Suddenly, Orito receives a message from his friend Kyoko asking him to come see her. Ayumu teases him by saying that he already has a girlfriend, and Orito asks him to go with him to see her, since she always wanted to meet him. They go to see her at the hospital and bring her flowers. In the hospital elevator, Orito asks Ayumu not to try to win over Kyoko since she is like a little sister to him, and she is also recovering after being attacked by the serial killer. When they arrive at Kyoko's room, she blushes to meet Ayumu, and Orito leaves them alone while he looks for a vase for the flowers, and Ayumu asks Kyoko if she remembers the serial killer, and she describes him as having blue and expressionless eyes, silver hair, and more strange gauntlets that leaves Ayumu speechless, since the description fits Yu, and he wonders if she could be the serial killer. At night, Ayumu can't stop thinking about the possibility that Yu is the serial killer, but his thoughts are interrupted because Haruna and Seraphim cook dinner for the first time, and it seems something inedible, but Seraphim asks him to try it first because he is a zombie and it won't affect him, but he faints as soon as he tries it. When he wakes up, the girls are still hungry, so he orders pizza, and when he goes to the door thinking he's the pizza guy, he's surprised to see a talking Doberman. He is Cerberus, the watchdog of the underworld who collects souls that do not belong to this world, and Ayumu is one of them. So Cerberus attacks him, but Ayumu runs into the house and Yu quickly heals him as Cerberus looks on. Cerberus tells Yu that he didn't know that she was the one keeping Ayumu's soul on Earth, so he leaves because he has to collect more souls tonight. Ayumu quickly realizes that the souls Cerberus has to collect are those of the people who have just been attacked by the serial killer, so he follows Cerberus. The Doberman asks if he knows how important it is that Yu healed his wounds, but Ayumu doesn't know what he means, and Cerberus says that when she heals wounds, the pain is felt by her. After that, they arrive at the crime scene, and Cerberus says that the souls are gone and explains to Ayumu that the souls are being sacrificed in exchange for power, but he has no idea who the culprit is. Suddenly, the two of them are dared by a sword, and Cerberus disappears into golden dust. When Ayumu gets home, Yu heals his chest wound and he asks her why she has no emotions. Then she explains that her power is so great that it can go out of control if she expresses her emotions, and her words can become magic. That's why she does not speak and only communicates by writing. Her blood can give immortality, and if she perishes, her power will continue to exist. So that is why she wears that armor, to keep her power at bay. Suddenly, she starts crying because she thinks he will see her as a monster now that he knows the truth about her. But he assures her that he doesn't care about her and asks her to laugh if she wants to, since he will take care of whatever disasters are unleashed because of her. Unfortunately, what Yu said was true, as her magic is unstable. A megalo in the form of a giant whale hits the city from the sky, and Ayumu's superhuman strength is not enough, so Haruna convinces him to become magic-clad girl. After his transformation, he asks Seraphim to make the deepest cut she can on the whale's neck, and he begins to increase his power to 1000%. But his clothing becomes cuter and cuter. And after Seraphim manages to wound the whale in the neck, Ayumu flies as high as possible to descend more intensely to the whale and cut its neck with a chainsaw, and fortunately, they win. On the other hand, Kyoko is executed in the hospital by someone mysterious. The next day, Ayumu blushes when he sees that Seraphim kisses Haruna and then bites her neck. It turns out that she needs to drink blood periodically to live normally, and her kiss is anesthetic, so he offers her his blood, but she doesn't even consider him an option. At night, Haruna tries to transform into a magic-clad girl, but the transformation fails again, and to make matters worse, Ayumu enters the room to tell her that the food is ready and sees her without clothes, which costs him several blows from Haruna. After dinner, the three girls go to bathe together, and while Ayumu washes the dishes, he receives a call from Haruna's instructor Ariel. She wants to ask Haruna about the Kyoto tofu, and Ayumu realizes Haruna's mission is to get tofu from Kyoto, but she got confused in the city and ended up in Tokyo. This makes Ariel laugh, and she says that it is something typical of Haruna to get confused like that. So Ayumu offers to get her the tofu from Kyoto and immediately calls Kyoko and asks if her grandfather who lives there can get it for her, and Kyoko says that she will get it for him. The next day, Yu tells Ayumu not to go out tonight, but he agreed to meet Kyoko at the cemetery, which seems strange to him, but he still goes. At the cemetery, Kyoko gives him the tofu and refuses to let Ayumu pay her, but when he turns around, she says that she wants something from him, his life, and she stabs him with a sword. Immediately, he realizes that she is the serial killer. Cannot believe that Orito's childhood friend is to blame for everything, but she says that she only changed his memory so that he would think that he knew her. All this time she was collecting souls from her victims, but has escaped. Then she transforms into magic-clad girl and starts attacking him and freezes him. Fortunately, Haruna and Seraphim appear to help him, and Haruna unfreezes him easily. Seraphim starts to fight Kyoko, but she is very strong and has the power of a megalo, so Ayumu transforms into magic-clad girl very reluctantly, because he hates the feminine outfit that he has to wear. After that, he starts fighting Kyoko, and suddenly, he hugs her as part of Seraphim's plan to impale them both with her sword, since Ayumu is a zombie and can resist the stab. They think they won the fight, so they get distracted and don't see that Kyoko is fully recovered because it turns out that Kyoko has more than 1,000 lives. So she stabs Seraphim, and when she's about to attack them again, Yu appears and protects them. Kyoko is excited to see Yu, so she starts attacking her fiercely. But Yu has a force field that protects her, so she doesn't get hurt. So she takes Haruna's chainsaw and transforms into a magic-clad girl. Ayumu realizes why he stole Haruna's powers. The magic sticks to the strongest magic, and now she is the strongest in the world, so she can use her powers without any problems. To prevent the others from getting hurt, Yu takes Kyoko away, then Kyoko begins to attack her so much that even her skin tears apart. But Yu doesn't even flinch and counterattacks by telling her to die. It turns out that her words are so powerful that they become reality, so Kyoko immediately, but revives again and again. But after saying it so many times, Yu begins to feel pain, and Kyoko takes advantage of the fact that her eardrums rupture and she became deaf, so she doesn't listen to what Yu says and she sticks to her and exploit her at point-blank range, taking her magic. The girls and Ayumu get angry when they see Yu's defeat and start attacking Kyoko. This time, Ayumu not mind becoming a magic-clad girl in order to attack Kyoko. He is beaten and hurt horribly, but he is a zombie, so he remains standing until he gets close enough to Kyoko and breaks her sword, taking away her magic-clad girl powers. Finally, he grabs the chainsaw and begins to kill her repeatedly for hours until she revives for the last time and begins to tremble with fear because she has reached her last life, and when he's about to execute her, she faints from fear, and he lets her live. After that, the three of them go to see Yu and check that she is okay, and fortunately, she is, and she is hungry. Suddenly, Instructor Ariel appears next to Kyoko and is happy to know that she is alive and wonders what went wrong with her student, and Ayumu scolds her for not educating her students well, but Ariel says that she will take her to re-educate her. But before she takes her, Kyoko wakes up and begins to speak with a male voice, greeting Yu. He is the Night King, and he is controlling Kyoko's body and disappears in a black mist, saying goodbye to Yu. Ayumu asks Yu if she knows him, and she says that he is a zombie that she executed a long time ago. Then Ariel also leaves, saying that she will look for Kyoko. Days later, Ayumu asks Yu if there are more zombies like him, and she says no, she only turned one, but he was consumed by malice and she executed. Then, Ayumu says that there is nothing to worry about because she has him, Haruna, and Seraphim, and Yu smiles warmly at him. The weeks go by and Ayumu has to study hard to avoid going to summer school because as a zombie, he couldn't stand the heat. The problem is that he asked Haruna to help him study math, and she is a genius, so she insists on teaching him from the beginnings of the universe until reaching the mathematical problems. And although Yu teaches him the mathematical problems, Haruna gets her way and teaches him everything she knows. On the day of the exam, Ayumu is grateful for Haruna's teachings, since the exam seems easy to him, but suddenly she appears at the school window and tells him that there is a megalo nearby. He finishes his exam and calls home to ask where the megalo is. The problem is that he is very far away, and Ayumu has to walk looking for shadows wherever there are, and he barely manages to get to where Haruna is. Then he transforms into a magic-clad girl and defeats the horse-shaped megalo that was bothering Haruna, but is attacked from behind by several jellyfish that begin to electrocute him. Luckily, A girl appears and starts throwing plates of ramen at the jellyfish, making them disappear. Then Seraphim arrives and the girl greets her happily. But Seraphim is not very friendly since the girl belongs to another faction of vampires. She is Maelstrom. Ayumu worries about Mail and starts checking to see if she was hurt in the fight, but that angers Haruna, who feels ignored by him because he didn't ask her how she was, and she pushes him, making him trip and fall on top of Mail, and they end up kissing. Haruna gets angrier and hits Ayumu just like Seraphim. After that, Mail takes them to the factory where they cook ramen capable of destroying the megalo, but when Ayumu asks her what the relation between pork ramen and the megalo, she gives him an explanation about the beginnings of the universe and more, leaving him confused again. Finally, Mail shows them a giant machine that will rain ramen if the city is attacked by hundreds of megalo and asks Serpam to join them, but she rejects the offer. When they leave, Ayumu notices that Mail looks sad and asks Seraphim what is happening. And she tells him that the vampires ninja only kiss at the wedding ceremony, not before. Basically, they are married, and although he can't believe it, he asks Seraphim if they would be married if he kissed her, and Serpam says yes, but she would never let him kiss her. The next day at school, a rude girl gives Ayumu a package from Ariel, and he doesn't understand why Ariel would give him glasses. At that moment, Mail comes in and gives him a lunchbox. She says that she respects the rules of her kind and is not ashamed to be his wife. Then, Ayumu tells her that she shouldn't be so adamant since the kiss was an accident, but she confesses that she always wanted a husband, and before Ayumu can answer, Ordo approaches them and asks him how he knows Tomonori. And since Ayumu does not understand who he is talking about, Oreo explains to him that it's a play on words with her full name, but she doesn't like that, and she makes it clear to them that she wants them to call her Yuki. It turns out that the glasses that Ariel sent are used to look through clothes, so Ayumu takes care of them as if they were gold, but he is soon discovered by Seraphim, since those glasses were to her, and tells him that he is a disgusting, miserable boy for looking at girls with those special glasses. The next morning, Ayumu is woken up by Haruna's kicking, as she dreamed that he kissed her, and insists that everything is his fault. This is supported by Seraphim saying that he is so indecent that he sneaks into the girl's dreams. He defends himself, saying that he can't control what other dreams, but this time, not even Iu defends him. At school, Ayumu is ready to eat the food that Haruna packed for him and thinks that maybe it tastes bad because she woke up angry with him, but on the contrary, it tastes exquisite as always. On the other hand, Yuki asks Kanami, Ayumu's classmate, how to get Ayumu to like her. Kanami dislikes Ayumu, so she doesn't understand how someone could like him, so Yuki reveals that she is something like his wife. Then Kanami says that the best way to reach his heart is through the stomach. Meanwhile, Seraphim receives a secret message that she can only read with the special glasses. Days later, Yuki prepares a lunchbox for Ayumu, but Haruna's are very difficult to beat, so she adds all the possible toppings so that he likes hers more. The next step is to get closer to him, walking home together. As they walk, Ayumu asks Yuki to stop telling people that she is his wife, but Yuki makes it clear that that is what she is according to the vampire code. He continues to insist that it was an accidental kiss and prefers that they be friends, but Yuki yells at him that she wants him to like her and asks him to make an effort to see her as a wife, which makes Iu blush since all the passers-by stare at them. Suddenly, Haruna appears and asks them to stop shouting in the middle of the street and kicks Ayumu. Then he tells her that to stop her being so moody, he will go out with her on the weekend as a thank you for her help in the exam. That makes Haruna very happy because she thinks that the two of them will go alone, but Yuki invites herself to the outing, and Ayumu says that Seraphim and Iu can also go with them. On the weekend, the five of them go shopping, and the poor Ayumu is the one who has to pay and carry all the purchases. Then they go to eat because Iu is hungry, and then they go to play in an arcade, without realizing that someone keeps his gaze on Iu. In the afternoon, the five of them ride the Ferris wheel, and Haruna is upset because Yuki didn't leave Ayumu's side for even a moment and tells her that getting married because of an accidental kiss doesn't make sense, but Seraphim says that's their code. Then, Haruna asks her why the two are not married if they kissed, but Seraphim says that when the kiss is for feeding, it does not count, and the rule does not exist for kisses between girls. At night, Haruna and Ayumu go to buy canned drinks for everyone, and she asks him to kiss her, but he asks her if she went crazy. That angers her, and she starts beating him, scolding him about his marriage with Yuki, and how he converted their date to a group activity, and after hitting him so much, she feels more relieved because she got all the anger out of her. When they return to the other girls, they find them worried because Iu left with a guy she knew. Far from there, Iu is with the Night King and she tries to eliminate him, but it is impossible because he is a zombie. Meanwhile, Seraphim tells Ayumu that perhaps one of her superiors took Iu away and confesses that yesterday she received a message from her village ordering her to eliminate Iu because some members of the village think that Iu's magic is the cause of many megalo appearances. That shocks Ayumu, and he asks her if she will obey those orders, and she says that she cannot disobey the vampire code. But he is already fed up with that code and asks her again if she is really going to eliminate Yu. But Seraphim starts to cry and says that obviously she doesn't want to hurt Yu, and Haruna stops them, telling them that they have to look for Yu, and Serpahim thanks Ayumu for helping her decide. Meanwhile, the Night King tells Yu that he hates her because he thought they would always be together. But when he did something she didn't like, she made him disappear, but luckily for him, he didn't fade away. Then he threatens her by saying that if she doesn't do what he wants, her friends will pay dearly, and at that moment he snaps his fingers, and the Wheel of Fortune falls on top of Ayumu, although he is not hurt. Yu's emotions begin to get out of control, and a huge stuffed animal appears and falls on Haruna, and is so heavy that they can't get her out from under it. Yu asks the Night King not to hurt her friends, but he tells her that this time it was her fault since her emotions bring destruction because she is the harbinger of death. At that moment, Ariel appears and says that she will not allow him to hurt another of her students and launches an attack to move the giant stuffed animal, but this time it falls on top of Yuki, who, when she gets up, releases a giant beast. Ariel tells them that this giant beast will self-destruct if she gets out of control, so to help them she sends them Haruna's chainsaw, and Ayumu transforms into Magic-clad girl. He asks the girls not to attack Yuki, he will take care of her, and he begins to talk to her to return her to normal, and she slowly begins to wake up, but her emotions get out of control and the monster begins the final count to self-destruct. Then, Ayumu hugs her and says he won't leave her alone, and that gives Yuki the strength to regain control and encapsulate the giant monster inside her again. Finally, the Night King tells Yu that he will not give up until she grants his wish and leaves, and Yu goes with her friends. After that, everyone goes home, but Yu tells them that she will stay at the convenience store for a while, and the others continue on their way. When Ayumu goes to his room, he realizes that he has a farewell note from Yu in his pocket, where she explains to them that everything is her fault because she is the herald of destruction, and says goodbye. Ayumu runs to look for her everywhere but can't find her and starts crying for her, but Haruna and Seraphim assure him that they will find her. Chapter 10. Several months later, they still have not been able to find Yu, not even Seraphim, who returns injured from her village since the conservative vampires did not take kindly to her disobeying their orders to eliminate Yu. One night, they go to the convenience store and meet the Night King by chance, and he doesn't know where Yu is either, but he starts attacking them to attract Yu. First, he cuts off Ayumu's legs, and when he is about to attack the girls, Seraphim cuts off his arm, but he is a zombie and is not affected by losing a limb, so he uses his black mist to trap Seraphim. But fortunately, Yuki and the vampire's ninja arrive to surround the Night King. He tells Ayumu that he cannot be captured, but he still wants to die and leaves. The vampires also disappear to track him down, not wanting to see Seraphim, since they consider her a traitor. The girls help glue Ayumu's legs, but they glue them wrong, so Haruna carries him back home, while Seraphim leaves to continue looking for Yu. The next day, Yuki calls Ayumu and tells him that she found out where the Night King lives, and it turns out that he lives near them. Then Seraphim, who was returning home, sees Yu standing outside the house and thinks that she has returned, but she is crossed by the Night King. And he tells Yu to go with him, and Yu accepts, but first she gives some of her blood to Seraphim to save her. When Seraphim wakes up, she tells them that the Night King has Yu, and Haruna and Ayumu run off to find her. The Night King calmly opens the door and invites them to dinner, since he cooked enough for everyone, and they accept because Yu is there, although she doesn't speak to them. The Night King asks Ayumu if he got bored of immortality already, but they are interrupted by the ninja vampires. Then the Night King puts a bomb on Haruna's head and takes Yu and escapes with her through the window. But Ayumu extends his hand to reach her, and Yu also extends her hand towards him. But she regrets it and leaves with the Night King, leaving Ayumu speechless. Yuki approaches Haruna to see the bomb, and the bomb moves to her head. So Haruna cuts one of the wires to deactivate it, but it only causes the time to speed up. Then Ayumu brings his head closer to Haruna's, so that the bomb goes up to his head and jumps out the window to receive the explosion alone. Since he is a zombie, while waiting for the explosion, he sadly thinks why Yu didn't take his hand. The next few days, the girls spend their days putting Ayumu's body parts together so he can regenerate, but although his body quickly comes together, he doesn't wake up, and Seraphim thinks it's because he doesn't want to wake up. While he is unconscious, he dreams with the girls blaming him for all his flaws and mistakes, and he sinks deeper and deeper into his personal abyss. Days later, Ariel arrives at Ayumu's house at Haruna's request, and she says that she will help her to talk to him and casts a spell on her. Haruna enters Ayumu's conscience and gets rid of the fake Harunas who were insulting him and asks Ayumu to wake up, but he can only think of Yu choosing the Night King instead of him, and Haruna gives him a headbutt to stop that attitude and do something instead of just crying, asking him to come back to them. Then Haruna and Ayumu wake up at the same time and Seraphim warns them that there is a megalo nearby. At Tokyo Tower, the Night King tells Yu that he is going to destroy the city because she won't let him die. At that moment, Haruna and Ayumu arrive there and ask Yu to return with them. But the Night King tells them that he has already summoned a Melago to destroy the city, so Yu will hate him more and will finally eliminate him. But Yu says that she doesn't want to eliminate any more friends, so he starts attacking and hurting Ayumu. Meanwhile, outside, Seraphim is at the top of the tower playing the violin to stop the creatures of the underworld, since she is a vampire who has blood from someone powerful like Yu. Back inside the tower, the Night King says that he will continue to hurt Ayumu until Yu fulfills his wish, but Haruna's chainsaw begins to vibrate and she understands what it is saying. It turns out that for her to transform into a magic-clad girl, she has to do it at the same time as Ayumu, so they try and they both manage to transform into magic-clad girls. Outside, Seraphim continues playing her violin to keep the monsters that want to cross the barrier, but there are more and more of them, so all the vampires in the city join her and start playing as if it were an orchestra, managing to contain all the megalos. Inside, Haruna and Ayumu begin to fight together as a team against the Night King, but he is so strong that he withstands the attacks and sends Haruna flying away, so Ayumu loses his transformation. The fight is bare-knuckle between the two zombies. Ayumu wants the Night King to understand that Yu does not want to eliminate a friend, and the Night King wants him to understand that he has lost the will to live and only she can free him from his suffering, and tells Ayumu that he will soon begin to feel the same as him. But Ayumu says that will never happen because he has Yu, Haruna, and Seraphim by his side. Suddenly, Yu agrees to grant the Night King's wish and eliminate him once and for all, and he thanks her and asks Ayumu that when he starts to feel miserable, to not blame Yu. Finally, Yu whispers a few words to the Night King and he fades into violet dust forever. Ayumu lets Yu process the loss of a friend, but hours later he returns to her side and asks her not to leave. Then Yu finally lets him hear her voice and tells him that she will not leave his side, and he promises that together they will face her fate. Chapter 12. That night, Haruna wins tickets for the pool on her 1000th try at the lottery. The next day, Haruna gets angry because Seraphim is showing off her big chest in a revealing bikini, so she tells her that she will surpass her next year. Ayumu doesn't think that's possible, but he's just happy to see Yu in a bathsuit. Suddenly, Yuki arrives at the pool with her friends. She also won lottery tickets, and the girls start playing while being watched by Seraphim and Ayumu. Although Seraphim is a little disgusted because he enjoys the sight of girls in bathing suits too much, but she's going to allow it this time because he had a difficult fight against the Night King. But he says that it wasn't that difficult because he is a zombie. After that, Ayumu goes to walk around the pool complex and sees that there is a concert and the idol is Sarasvati, a ninja vampire known for her bad mood, but Arito, who is her fan, tells Ayumu that she is very popular on the internet. Her stage name is Lovely Carrara. At that moment, Seraphim arrives and sees Sarasvati and can't believe that she is a singer, so she goes to the stage to scold her because a ninja vampire is supposed to live in the shadows, but Sarasvati tells her that she's a ninja vampire in the shadows, but in the light, she is Lovely Carrara. Sarasvati explains to Seraphim that she is the #1 in the idol ranking, and if she wants to convince her to leave everything, she must beat her. Then the crowd goes crazy because they think that Seraphim is a new idol who is making her debut, so she immediately enters to the ranking. Seraphim can't believe what is happening, but she decides to enter the game and puts on an idol outfit and starts singing, which immediately places her at #2 in the idol ranking. But Sarasvati is not a rookie and she changed her outfit for a more revealing one, making the public go crazy, so Seraphim does the same. Suddenly, Haruna goes on stage because it doesn't seem fair that only they are idols and starts singing horribly. Although this doesn't bother the fans since they are crazy for Haruna, so she manages to skyrocket in the ranks. Later, Yu comes to see the concert and Ayumu realizes that she also wants to sing, but she can't because of her powers, but luckily for her, Ariel appears with a magic sucking machine and tells Ayumu that she can pass it Yu's magic to him so she can sing. Then Yu gets on stage in an innocent idol outfit and starts singing a calm song that brings peace to the hearts of the audience, but Yu's power is too much and Ayumu can't contain it, so the magic sucking machine runs out of battery, which makes Yu sad because she has to stop singing. But Haruna wants Yu to continue singing, so she takes her hand and says that she will control the rest of her magic, and Yu sings again, delighting the hearts of the audience, while Seraphim and Sarasvati dance to the rhythm of the music. Ayumu is very happy to see the show and wishes that all the girls would wear the same sensual outfit that the vampiresses are wearing, but he didn't realize that he still has some of Yu's power, so his wish comes true, and the girls' clothes are transformed into linen, which makes them very angry, and they start hitting him. Days later, Ayumu reflects that the world hides many secrets that people are destined not to know, but that is fine with him, because this way he can live peacefully and happily with his girls. Days later, everyone goes to the New Year's festival at the shrine, but it is empty, so Haruna decides to have their own festival with games and challenges that will reward a date with Iyu and Seraphim. This attracts the attention of all the men in the city who are willing to do anything to spend time with the girls. But the challenges are not easy. For example, they have to eat explosive meatballs made by Seraphim and much more games. Then, Ayumu decides to participate to protect Iyu from all the men, and manages to reach the last challenge. He has to climb to the top of the shrine by a slippery surface, but it is almost impossible because Seraphim is above and throws wooden logs at them to make them fall. Fortunately for him, Orito comes to his aid and convinces him to awaken his arrow soul, as this will give him enough will to achieve his goal. So together they grab a statue that according to them increases their arrow souls and run towards Seraphim. This time she can't stop them, and Orito is the one who manages to reach the end and win. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't claim the prize from him because he had earlier eaten a ramen made by Seraphim that sent him straight to the hospital. Days later, Seraphim is determined to cook since she lives for free in Ayumu's house, but the problem is that she cooks terribly. The next day, Sarasvati gives Ayumu a scroll that has the ancestral recipe of the ninja vampires. He was supposed to give it to Seraphim, but he gives it to Yuki, because she lied to him that she was going to give cooking classes to Seraphim. When he returns home, Seraphim beats him up because he failed to bring her the scroll, so he calls Yuki. But Haruna is the one who answers and tells him that if he wants the scroll, he will have to go get it. At night, Seraphim, Yu, and Ayumu put on leotards to start the scroll's rescue mission, but Yuki's house has many traps, so the girls send Ayumu to clear the way. But as he progresses, he is attacked by bamboos that embed in his body, making him blush. But despite everything, he manages to disable the traps so the girls can pass. Then the three enter Yuki's house and find them sleeping, and Haruna had hidden the scroll under her shirt, so Ayumu takes it from her, and she wakes up to beat him up. The next day, Seraphim cooks meat stew thanks to the scroll's recipe, but it doesn't turn out very well, although the girls say that she has improved a lot and ask her to serve them more. Days later at school, a card tournament begins where the students have to complete sentences. For Ayumu, it is a child's game, but Orito makes him realize that they can see the girls' underwear while they compete, so they play around enjoying the sight. At the semifinal, 5 students compete: Orito, Yuki, Teiko, Ayumu, and Sarasvati, who are going to play standing to distract Orito, since he is on the ground and can look under her skirt perfectly. To Sarasvati's bad luck, she gets distracted by looking at Ayumu's butt, and Orito can't take his eyes off her anymore, so only Yuki, Teiko, and Ayumu pass to the final. But Teiko wants her friend Yuki to win, so she takes off her shirt a little, and Ayumu distracts himself by looking at her bra, making him pass out from a nosebleed. At the end of the day, Ayumu tells Teiko that she is very kind for doing everything so that Yuki wins, but she says that he is nicer because when he was a child, he preferred to give his umbrella to a puppy without worrying about getting wet, and since that day, she has admired him. Ayumu blushes when he hears that story and does not realize that his rear is observed by Sarasvati, who has fallen in love with it. Days later, everyone goes to the pool to cool off, and Ayumu is surprised because it seems that Haruna has a bigger chest, but Orito says that the girls wear tighter clothes to highlight their tributes, which earns him a good beating from Haruna. After that, Ayumu goes swimming with Iyu, although she is not very good, so they go to have ice drinks with the others. Haruna tries to convince him to go with her to hunt Nessies, but he tells her that they do not exist, but she claims she saw something, although he just wants to stay with Iyu. Haruna goes crying to hunt Nessies alone, and Iyu also gets sad because she thinks that Haruna hates her because she spent all her time with Ayumu, and she wants to be friends with her. Suddenly, they hear Haruna's screams, and Ayumu sees that she is fighting an inflatable doll shaped like a Loch Ness monster. The problem is that along the way, he encounters several distractions. Yuki wants to swim with him. Teiko wants him to put sunscreen on her back, and Seraphim wants to play with him in the water, but he accidentally takes off the top of her bikini, and Seraphim gets so angry that she hits him and puts him in an inflatable in the shape of the Loch Ness monster. It turns out that Orito had also received the same punishment, and Haruna believed that he was Nessie, so she jumps on Ayumu, believing that there are now 2 Nessie. Immediately, she realizes it's him and gets sad, and she confesses that she is having fun with Iyu trying to catch Nessie. And Ayumu realizes that everyone was trying to stop him because Iyu and Haruna were playing together. Days later, Seraphim tells Ayumu that tomorrow is Yu's birthday and she wants to throw a surprise party. Ayumu thinks this is a great idea and asks her what she's going to give he, but Seraphim doesn't want to tell him because she wants her gift to be the best, but Ayumu is not afraid and says that his will be the best. The next day, Ayumu invites Yuki and Orito to Iu's birthday party, and Orito says that he has the perfect gift for Iu. In the afternoon, Ayumu takes Iu shopping for groceries while Seraphim and Haruna decorate the house for the birthday party. Ayumu notices that Iu is sad, and she says that today is her birthday and wonders if it is good that she is still alive. That makes Iu sad and tells her that they should return home. But when they enter the house, they enter another dimension where they have to solve puzzles and pass dangerous tests, and when they finally reach the end of it all, Ayumu slaps Haruna on the head because it was her idea to do all that. But she explains that this is how their birthdays are celebrated in their world. After that, Yuki and Orito arrive at the birthday party, and while everyone is eating the cake, Iu starts to open her gifts. Seraphim gave her a necklace, Ayumu a new cup, and Orito a device that makes bread grow, and to the surprise of everyone, Iu chooses Orito's gift as the best of all. Then he asks how old Iu is, and she makes him sleep to not answer. Then, she reads the card that Ayumu wrote to her, where he tells her that he is happy that she was born, otherwise he would not have met her. Season 2. Weeks later, Ayumu returns to school but becomes dehydrated from the heat coming through the window, so Anderson takes him to the infirmary. When he wakes up, he sees a pink-haired girl who is looking for alcohol and gets scared when she sees that he is awake, so she runs away. At home, Ayumu tells his girls about the pink-haired girl, and they think he was hallucinating, so they don't believe him. The next day, Yuki gives Ayumu her lunchbox, but this time he stops her from adding condiments and toppings, and since it is a lot of food, she sits down to have lunch with him and says that Haruna's fried eggs are hard to beat. In the afternoon, Teiko notices that Ayumu hasn't gone home yet, and he says that he likes to look at the sun out the window, but in reality, he can only go home after the sun sets. At night, Ayumu is relieved to finally be able to go home, but when he passes by Science Room, he sees that there is still someone there and is surprised to see the pink-haired girl drink again. She invites him to drink with her, but he rejects it because he is minor, so he only drinks water. The strange thing is that the water also makes him a little drunk, and he tells her his whole life. She cheers him on, and he says he wants to see her more often. But suddenly, she and her drinks disappear, and Ayumu thinks it was a work of his imagination. The next day, Orito shows Ayumu a magazine that shows a crossdresser armed with a chainsaw, and he says that he looks like Ayumu. He begins to sweat with fear, but Teiko says that that crossdresser cannot be Ayumu, and he thanks her for her trust in him, although he flees the classroom. He runs into the science room to tell the pink-haired girl about his worries, but he encounters a squid-shaped megalo who is attracted by the magic of a magic-clad girl. Then Ayumu starts to attack him, and Haruna also arrives and transforms into magic-clad girl, but she still hasn't recovered all of her powers, so her dress has an open back. Ayumu has no choice but to take the giant squid out of the school, but this attracts everyone's attention, and on top of that, he must transform in front of all the students, who cannot believe that he is the crossdresser with the chainsaw from the magazine. Haruna tells him that later they will erase everyone's memory. The important thing is to save Teiko, who has been captured by the squid. The chainsaw tells Ayumu to follow its instructions to defeat the squid, and he listens to it and increases his power to 1000% and defeats the squid. The problem is that the chainsaw has a crack and Ayumu can't erase the students' memories, so he gets desperate and starts shaking the chainsaw like crazy, and it ends up breaking it, and because of that, his transformation disappears, and he is left without clothes in front of the entire school. Hours later, Seraphim goes to look for Ayumu from the police station and scolding him for what happened. The next day, he enters his classroom with his head bowed and is surprised to see that all of his classmates were waiting to praise him. Since he has become a celebrity overnight, now he is a role model for men who want to dress freely. Ayumu can't stand the attention that everyone gives him and runs away to the science classroom, and for his good luck, this time the pink-haired girl was there. He tells her what happened, and she says that embarrassment doesn't last forever. That comforts Ayumu, and he leaves. After that, Yuki invites him to see the stars on the mountain so he can clear his mind, and he accepts since he wants some peace. In the afternoon, Yuki is disappointed to see that Ayumu invited the other girls since she wanted to be alone with him, but she puts on a good face and everyone begins to climb the mountain. But as they go up, Haruna's complaints increase because she's wearing sandals and not sneakers like the others. Soon she wants to go to the bathroom and goes into the forest. Since she is taking too long, Ayumu and Yuki go to look for her because they are worried that Yuki has run into a bear. As they walk through the forest, Ayumu thanks Yuki for bringing him to a quiet and peaceful place. She blushes and says that that is the job of a good wife. Suddenly, they are interrupted by the screams of Haruna, who is fleeing from a swarm of bees. Then, Haruna grabs Ayumu and throws him to the bees, but they do not accept him as an offering, and to make matters worse, a bear joins the chase. So Haruna climbs on Ayumu's back and they run away together. In the end, they all get together again, and Yuki says that she envies the relationship between the four of them, since they trust each other a lot and live happily, but the girls assure her that they came to see the stars with her. When they finally reach the top of the mountain, a shower of shooting stars begins, and that motivates Ayumu to face his new fame. The next day, he signs a lot of autographs during the day, so when Sarasvita gives him a piece of paper, he thinks that she wants an autograph, but she tells him that it is a secret message. When he deciphers the message, he is surprised and scared to read that it is a declaration of love with insults included. At the end of the day, Ayumu meets Orido and asks him why he is avoiding him, and his friend says that it is very difficult for him to accept that he is a superstar, and he feels that their paths have parted, which saddens Ayumu. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ariel begins torturing Kyoko to extract information from her. That night, Seraphim goes to ask Sarasvita what attracts her to Ayumu, and the other vampire is direct and says that she likes his butt. Seraphim can't believe it, so she leaves. At home, Ayumu calls Ariel to ask how much longer the chainsaw repair will take, and she says that there is a long waiting list for those who need restorations, so he will have to wait longer. Haruna says that she will be in charge of fixing the chainsaw with Yu's help, and spends a whole day and night taking it apart repeatedly and doing mathematical and magical calculations. At midnight, Ayumu sees that Haruna and Yu are asleep from exhaustion, but it seems that they achieved their goal since the chainsaw looks great. Then he takes the chainsaw and Seraphim goes with him to transform and erase everyone's memory, but unfortunately, the chainsaw breaks again and he is left without clothes again, which gets him beaten up by Seraphim. The next day at school, Orido tells Ayumu that he still needs time to assimilate his fame, but he is trying with all his might, and especially with the help of Anderson, who hugs him from behind and says that Orido is a caterpillar who will soon turn into a butterfly with his help. In the afternoon, Ayumu goes to the science room to vent with his new pink-haired friend. He can't believe that his life is still upside down, and she's again. Although she gives him her advice of the day, he must have the courage to face his problems. Meanwhile, Haruna was walking around when she feels an evil power starting to suffocate her, but that's because Yuki is dancing and her dance looks like voodoo, so she asks her to stop. Yuki explains that she's a backup dancer for Sarasvita and her concert is approaching, but she's not very good at dancing, so Yuki decides to help her practice. But this only increases the negative magic they emanate together. So when Ayumu was returning home, he is attacked by the negative magic of the girl's voodoo dance. After that, they tell him what is happening and he shows them how they should dance, since he's a great dancer. At that moment, Sarasvati appears and tells Yuki that if she doesn't get better, she will send her back to the village. Ayumu has no choice but to take Yuki to his house to help her dance, but the same thing happens. The two continue dancing the voodoo dance, causing the house, the girls, and the plants to lose their energy. After a whole night of practicing, Ayumu got the two of them to dance a little better and asked them to have fun at the concert. But when they go up on stage, they forget everything that Ayumu taught them and they start to dance their voodoo dance. But this time they don't join people, but rather they bewitch the public to follow their voodoo dances. When the concert ends, everyone faints from exhaustion, even Sarasvita. Meanwhile, somewhere, Ariel continues to torture Kyoko and she refuses to give her information about the Night King. She just wants to see Ayumu again to eliminate him. Weeks later, Ayumu enjoys his Sunday in peace assembling collectible robotic figures. Seraphim mocks him and says that it is child's toys, but Haruna thinks the opposite and starts playing with his robotic figures. But she does not do it carefully and breaks Ayumu's favorite. The next day, Orido, who is already reconciled with his friend's strange side, invites him to go to a cafe to cheer him up, but when they arrive, Ayumu realizes that it is a maid cafe, and Orido says that after seeing two pretty girls wearing maid outfits, Ayumu will give up his hobby of wearing dresses. This maid cafe is very popular with students, even Anderson goes there every day. It turns out that the maid cafe belongs to Sarasvita, and they have its tsundere concept. If you get 5 maids to lose their tsundere facade, everything you ate is free. But if you lose, you must pay 100,000 yen. Although Ayumu doesn't want to, Orido insists on trying, so the first maid they get is Yuki, but she falls in a second because she's very kind. The second maid they get is Haruna, who is working there because she needs money for something. She also loses very quickly because she gets jealous of the closeness between Yuki and Ayumu. The third maid is Seraphim, who sends Orido flying because he kept touching her legs. Ayumu knows that she is a difficult opponent, so he asks her for a dish made by her and he eats it without complaining, saying that it is delicious, even if it's not true, that makes her blush and she loses. The fourth maid is Yu, and Ayumu thinks he lost the match, but Yu is so delicate that by just writing a sentence, she shows her feelings, so she loses too. Ayumu is ecstatic because he only has one maid left to defeat and he thinks it will be Sarasvita, but he is wrong. The fifth one is Kanami, the coldest and most insensitive girl in school. He tries everything, but nothing works. Luckily, Orido returns to the fight and confesses his love for Kanami, and she blushes, automatically losing. Finally, Ayumu and Orita win and do not have to pay anything. Before leaving, Ayumu is surprised to learn that Anderson is from Underworld and knows Yu. At night, Haruna gives Ayumu a gift, a collectible figure, but not a robot, but of a monster, and Yu tells Haruna that the intention is what matters. Days later, Seraphim is summoned for a medical checkup in her village, so she tasks Haruna with taking care of Yu. As the days go by, Ayumu realizes that Seraphim was a great help to the house because the dirty clothes accumulate, and there is no one who goes out to buy groceries, and he can't because of the sun. So they only have left lots of tangerine. To make matters worse, Yu catches a cold and starts sweating profusely, so Ayumu asks Haruna to bring a lot of ice, and he takes Eve to her room and notices that her clothes are damp with sweat, so he decides to take it off, but he fears that his masculine instincts will take control, so he puts on gloves and blindfolds himself to avoid temptation. But he barely touches her shoulders when Haruna enters with the ice and misinterprets Ayumu's intentions and hits him, so he doesn't get in the way. Haruna manages to put Yu in dry and comfortable clothes and goes to the kitchen to prepare porridge with honey for Yu, and Ayumu keeps worrying because her fever won't go down and wonders if they should take her to the doctor. So he calls Anderson for advice, and he tells him that Yu will feel better if he dances in his underwear in front of her while he yodels. Incredibly, Ayumu believes him and does that, but at that moment, Haruna enters with the porridge and hits Ayumu again for being a perv, and he defends himself by saying that Anderson told him to do it too, and Anderson starts laughing on the phone and says it was to de-stress him since he sounded very worried. He finally says that Yu just needs them to be by her side and a good night's sleep. At night, Yu asks Ayumu if she can sleep with him, and he accepts without believing that she will sleep in his bed, so he tries to stay still. Unfortunately, Haruna enters his room and sees Yu sleeping next to him, and this time she doesn't hit him because she understands that Yu needs company right now, so she switches places with him and Ayumu sleeps on the floor. The next day, Anderson comes to check on Yu and notices that she no longer has a cold, but has tangerine marks on her neck. Ayumu tells him that she was eating it yesterday, and Anderson explains that the white pieces of the tangerine are toxic to those of Underworld, and no matter how much you try to remove them, they always remain. So they start doing everything to heal Yu, and incredibly it works, but the house ends up in a mess. Haruna tries to help with the cleaning and falls down from exhaustion since she was also sick, but she was pretending to be fine all this time so as not to cause more problems, so Ayumu feels bad for her since he was so focused on Yu that he didn't pay attention to Haruna. Ayumu and Yu begin to care for and pamper Haruna against her will, and since she does not want to cooperate, Ayumu grabs her to force her to lie down on the futons. At that moment, Seraphim returns home and misinterprets the scene and hits Ayumu. Days later, Ayumu calls Ariel to ask if the chainsaw will be ready soon, and she confirms that it will. He is very happy because he wants to spend the school festival being a normal person. The next day, Haruna goes to Ayumu's school since she was hired by Orito. According to him, she's an expert in organizing festivals. Ayumu first complains, but all of his classmates silence him because he doesn't contribute ideas. So he says the first thing that comes to mind that they can make a monster cafe, and Haruna approves of the idea, so his classmates approve too. Days later, preparations for the school festival continue, and Haruna also helps Ayumu's class. Meanwhile, Ayumu encounters a strange man on his way to school. He gives him a gold ring and says that he will need it soon. After that, he arrives at school and helps his classmates in everything he can. And then he goes to talk to the pink-haired girl. He tells her happily that everything has improved lately. She starts to talk philosophically, but after drinking a whole bottle of wine, she goes back to her usual self, and he leaves. Ayumu stays late decorating his classroom, and Teiko also decided to stay because she wanted to help him and tells him that his image has improved a lot, but that is not true, because some people still whisper that he is the crossdresser boy. At night, Ayumu comes home and the girls give him the good news that the chainsaw has been repaired, and he doesn't hesitate for a second to erase everyone's memory. The next day is the school festival, and Ayumu is the happiest person in the world because his name has been cleared, but happiness does not last long because he was chosen to be Dracula's bride and must wear a wedding dress and promote the Monster Cafe all over the school. And his girls decide to accompany him so that he doesn't feel so embarrassed, but the teasing is inevitable. They arrive at Yuki's stall, and she tells them that they recorded music CDs to sell, but they have not been able to do so, and Haruna plays the music, and they realize that it is evil music that is impossible to listen to, so the girls decide to help Yuki by dressing as bunnies to sell the CDs. Furthermore, Yuki asks Ayumu to accompany her to the courtyard, because she is about to receive a confession of love from a stranger, but she assures him that she will reject him because they are married. Then she gets more nervous because with everything she says it seems like she is the one who is confessing, so she accidentally falls into a trap and is hit, which causes her inner monster to wake up and begin this self-destruct countdown. At that moment, the strange man from before appears and tells Ayumu that he must use the ring that he gave him, that will seal Yuki's uncontrollable powers. Ayumu puts the ring on her and her monster disappears. She wakes up and immediately gets nervous because her husband put a wedding ring on her, so she runs away. Suddenly, Haruna tells Ayumu that there are two megalos attacking the school and the two transform to quickly defeat them, but a severe headache attacks Haruna. On the roof, Seraphim and Sarasve begin to suspect that something is wrong, and they do not believe that the megalos have been attracted by Ayumu's magic. The next day, Yu and Haruna tell Ayumu and Seraphim that now Haruna can't speak and Yu can, since Haruna created a device that allows her to extract some magic from A and use it. But something went wrong and she can't let her emotions get out of control or she will suffer pain. Then, Ayumu asks how Yu can talk now, and the two return to explain to them the creation of the universe. But he is late and has to go to school. Ayumu this time has to help behind the scenes, so he is relieved. Afterwards, Yu and Haruma go to school to enjoy the cultural festival. But first they go to greet Ayumu. Yu asks him why he doesn't fantasize about her like he always does, and he is embarrassed because Yu always knew that he fantasized about her. Then he starts to imagine what his life will be like with Yu as a classmate, and it's wonderful. But Haruna feels jealous of her and also wants him to fantasize about her, but he can only imagine her as a violent classmate. On top of that, she can't get frustrated because of her powers, so she throws the device out the window in a fit of silent anger. After that, the girls go to see the different stalls at the festival and Seraphim goes to enjoy Sarasvita's concert. Meanwhile, Yuki keeps showing off her ring, but a teacher sees it and takes it away from her because fashion accessories are prohibited at school. At night, the bonfire is ready for the couples to folk dance, and Ayumu reflects that last year he would have felt alone and this year he has his girls. But without realizing it, he is already dancing at the bonfire with a teacher. Suddenly, Yu and Haruna arrive to tell him that something is wrong. The two went back to normal for no reason. The professor starts laughing and turns into the pink-haired girl that Ayumu loves so much. She tells him that many years ago she was cursed and turned into a male human, and she could only return to her real form when she was drunk. But thanks to the magic-absorbing device that Haruna created, she was able to absorb the magic of the two girls. Plus, with the magic-controlling ring, she can control the curse. Her name is Chris, and she was Ariel's mentor in the past. Chris has a strong temper, so she forces the students to sit down and sends them flying when they say something she doesn't like, or when their hearts break when they hear how horrible it is to be an adult. Finally, only Orito and Ayumu remain. But Chris summons Seraphim and makes her bend down so that Orito falls into the temptation of admiring her and he falls from her, so she also sends him flying. Ayumu demands that she return Haruna's magic, since she needs it to fight, but Chris challenges him to take it away, but not even by increasing his strength can he defeat her, so she disappears. Meanwhile, Ariel is worried because Chris now has powers, so Kyoko tries to negotiate with her because she knows Chris' weakness. Chapter 8. At home, Ariel calls Ayumu to tell him that she's going to send someone who knows Chris' weakness, and he almost has a heart attack when Kyoko appears behind him. She says that she will only tell him Chris' weakness if they entertain her, and Ayumu is willing to do anything, but the girls distrust Kyoko and ask him to be careful. At night, Kyoko, wearing Link, throws herself on top of Ayumu, but he does not fall into her temptation and takes her out for a walk. She wants to have fun at a mixed party and he says he'll organize it. The next day, Ayumu does everything possible to get his friends to agree to go to his mixed party, and they accept out of pity. Meanwhile, Seraphim threatens Kyoko not to go too far with Ayumu, since she knows that she only wants to put him on the spot, but Kyoko mocks her by saying that she is really attached with Ayumu, and Seraphim does not deny it. The next day at the party, there are more girls than boys, so some masked men join the party to complete the male quota. The games start, but everyone can't stop blushing since the party is about flirting and getting a partner. And when Kyoko is about to kiss Ayumu, Ariel arrives and Kyoko gets angry because she thinks she's being watched and wants to hit her. But Ayumu stops he and takes her out of the party. He says he knows what she wants and takes her to the cemetery and tells her that she can do whatever she wants with him. And she transforms into a magic-clad girl and pierces him with her sword. But at the same time, she hugs him and tells him that she fell in love with him. Kyoko feels very sad because she was sentenced to hundreds of years in prison and no one will remember her. But Ayumu says that he is a zombie and will remember her forever. That makes Kyoko smile, and she tells him that is what she wanted and disappears into golden dust. When he returns home, he receives a fax with Chris' weakness written on it. Ayumu thinks that what is written on the fax is a lie, so he calls Ariel, and she confirms that in the past, tickling was Chris' weakness, and he can't see himself getting that close to her to tickle her. But Ariel says that he already defeated the Night King, so he can also defeat Churs. Plus, there is someone close to them who once defeated Chris. Ayumu asks Yu, and she says that a former commander of hers named Neglaria was able to defeat Chris. She was the one who made the gloves that contain her magic, and Anderson is the one who knows where she is. The next day, Ayumu asks Anderson about Neglaria, and he gets very scared because he is afraid of her, but he says that she will get him the address of her house. After that, Ayumu meets Sarasvita, and she invites him to her concert, which is in 2 days, and he promises to go. That makes her happy and smiles in a way that he never saw her before. The next day, Ayumu goes to the address Anderson gave him and is surprised to see the pigsty where Neglaria lives, and she keeps falling asleep while he explains his problem with Chris. When Neglaria finally pays attention to him, she tells him to call her Nin and explains that she is a manga artist and is very late with a delivery, and that is why she is sleepy. But unfortunately for him, she does not want to fight Chris because their fight would only bring destruction. But she will do him a favor in exchange for another favor. So Ayumu spends a day working for Nin, and since it's too much work, he calls Haruna to give them a hand and she agrees to go. But unfortunately for Ayumu, she arrives when Nin comes out of bathing and falls asleep on Ayumu. So Haruna runs home to get help because she thinks Ayumu has become the Dark Lord of Lechery. So Yu and Seraphim also go to Nin's house to check if Ayumu is already an adult who dates older women. But they quickly verify that he is only working for Nin, but they still hit him just in case. That name puts the four of them to work, and Yu realizes that Nin is drawing her story with her commanders, and Nin says that this time she wants their story to have a happy ending. Everyone works hard, but Seraphim is in charge of the food, and as always, her stew looks really inedible. So Ayumu tries to stop her, causing a mess and staining the drawing sheets. So they have to start over and work all night and day after. After that, Nin sees that Ayumu keeps looking at the clock and deduces that he has to go somewhere, so she tells her that he can go since everyone has worked hard enough. Then, Ayumu runs off to get there before Sarasvita's concert ends. He feels bad for not being able to face Chris. He still hasn't recovered Haruna's powers, so he only has to fulfill the promise he made to the vampire that loves him. Fortunately, he arrives in time to hear the last song, and after the concert, he apologizes to Sarasvita for being late, but she says that she knows he has his own problems, so it makes her happy that he made an effort to come to see her. Meanwhile, in a food cart, Nin and Chris drink pleasantly, and Nin tells her that Ayumu came to ask her for help to defeat her, and she thought he was a very interesting guy, and Chris agrees with her. The next day, Ariel shows up as a substitute teacher at Ayumu's school, and he confronts her during recess to ask her what she's up to, and she says that she wants to take a test to make him the strongest magic-clad girl in the world, but if he fails, she will erase all his memory. When he tells the girls that they all oppose that idea, so Haruna also goes to Ayumu's school as a substitute baking teacher to protect Ayumu. Haruna begins to teach them how to make meals with eggs, since she is an expert, but something goes wrong and creates a corrosive slime that melts the students' clothes, so Ayumu, like the hero he is, saves Teiko and Kanami, but when he wants help Haruna, she resists and the two sink into the slime. Unfortunately for him, this was Ariel's test, so she saves them both and erases Ayumu's memory. The girls do not agree with what happened and refuse to leave Ayumu's house, so Ariel decides to give him another chance, but they will have to recover his memory, so she sends them to his subconscious. Inside it, they find a shadow of Ayumu, which is the only thing that remains of him, and together they reach a nucleus where Ayumu's different personalities are, but Haruna is not up for games and defeats all the Ayumas in one fell swoop. They advance and find another Ayumu and believe that this time he is the real one. But this Ayumu represents sloth and decides to free himself and take control of Ayumu's body. Then, Ayumu wakes up and Ariel realizes that something is wrong because he dresses differently, and he tells her that he is Ayumu now, so Ariel calls him Dark Ayumu, and he leaves for school. Dark Ayumu arrives at school and his classmates notice that something is wrong with him. He is more pessimistic than normal. Luckily, Ariel arrives who tells them that Ayumu feels bad and not to pay attention to what he says. At that moment, Haruna arrives with the girls and wants to confront Dark Ayumu, but he laughs because she doesn't have magic. But Yu is the one who is going to confront Dark Ayumu, and he tries to take advantage of the feelings between Ayumu and Yu and asks her to go with him, but Yu does not fall into his game and pierces him with Haruna's chainsaw and shows him the old notes she wrote to him while she cries that shocks Dark Ayumu, and the real Ayumu struggles to wake up. Haruna does not want there to be any doubt that the real Ayumu is the one who wants to wake up, so she helps Yu, and between the two, they cut him in half, and finally the real Ayumu takes possession of his body. Then Ariel decides that he passed the test, but barely. After that, the four of them return to Ayumu's house, and he is happy that things are back to normal, and Yu agrees with him. One day, Orito goes to Ayumu's house and tells them that he will join the school flea market, But it is very boring to do it alone, so he asks them to join and at the same time challenges Haruna, whom sells more, and Ayumu accepts because he has many souvenirs that his parents send him from their trips around the world. The next day, everyone sets up their sales stalls and Haruna can't sell anything because she put a high price on everything. So Ayumu tells her to lower the price and it will sell faster. After that, Ayumu starts visiting other people's stalls and see that Orito is selling hand-drawn magazines. Then he goes to buy cookies from Teiko and eat ramen made by Yuki. She gives him coupons to buy Sarasvita merch. She's in her lovely Carrara outfit and sells CDs with photo cards and even does a handshake event like a real idol would do. In the afternoon, Haruna still hasn't sold much and worries because Orito is selling his magazines at an expensive price, but he still has customers. Then, Ayumu notices that boys buy from stalls with girls with big breasts and Haruna is at a disadvantage because she has a flat chest. Suddenly, the girls join forces with Haruna and start bringing clients to her so she can sell more things until someone asks how much a Serpim's top costs. This is overheard by Orito and he offers to buy it. So Haruna tells him that it is worth all the money he has raised so far plus the admission of defeat, and Orito accepts. When the flea market ends, Ayumu drinks a drink from Haruna's stall that it clearly said not to drink, then he begins to disappear. At home, Haruna explains that he took an invisibility potion, and the solution is to wait for the effects to wear off. The problem is now more serious. Someone sold the Philosopher's Stone that Haruna had in her stall, and that was not for sale. If the Philosopher's Stone is not in its sacred box, it can create dangerous weapons. Yu says that surely a young girl bought it thinking it was a necklace, and the only way to get it back is for Ayumu to sneak into the girl's medical checkup tomorrow. Since he is invisible, no one will notice. The next day, Ayumu goes to school without clothes and sneaks into the gym where the girls are getting measured, and he starts checking them one by one, but none of them seem to have the Philosopher's Stone necklace. But unfortunately for him, Sarasvita discovers him because of her vampire instincts, and she forces him to confess what he is doing, and he tells her about the Philosopher's Stone. So Sarasvita says that she will take care of finding it. Suddenly, Ayumu's invisibility stance begins to wear off, and he hides before anyone sees him without clothes, but Teiko finds him, and he thinks that his reputation will be ruined again. But Teiko believes everything he tells her and lends him her clothes so he can escape. Then, Ayumu finds the Philosopher's Stone necklace in Teiko's pants and thanks her for everything. When he gets home, Seraphim says that they already found the Philosopher's Stone. What he has is a copy, and he can't believe that he went through everything today looking for a fake copy of the Philosopher's Stone. So he drinks a soda that contains the Haruna's new invention, and his vision is X-rayed. Now he can see through clothes. At first he doesn't want to say anything, but he turns so red when he sees the girls' bodies that they realize, and Haruna starts hitting him.